is the night of our dear Savior's birth. Long lay the world in sin and error pining, till he appears and the soul felt his worth. A thrill of hope, the weary world rejoices when yonder breaks a new and glorious morn. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night divine, oh, night divine. Fall on your knees, oh, hear the angel voices, oh, night divine, oh, night when Christ was born. Oh, night divine, oh, night divine.
Om Asato Ma Sangamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityama Amritam Gamaya Avir Avir Ma Edhi Rudrayate Dakshinamukam Tenamam Painityam Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness unto light. Lead us from death to immortality. Reach us through and through, and protect us evermore with your loving presence. Om. Peace, peace, peace. Good morning and Merry Christmas. The title of today's talk is Christ the Savior. And probably some of you are wondering, I don't remember Swami Sarvadevananda having red hair. He was initially scheduled to speak today, and he's not here. I am Swami Arupeshananda. Swami Sarvadevananda has COVID. I understand that his symptoms are mild, but he is testing positive, so he's doing the responsible thing and quarantining. And so the title of the talk he was going to give today was Christ the Messenger. I initially thought of staying with that title, but then Christ the Messenger, it's interesting because that talk was actually given by Swami Vivekananda. That title, Christ the Messenger, was given by Swami Vivekananda, and I presume, although I don't know, that Swami Sarvadevananda was going to maybe model his talk on Vivekananda's, or at least refer to it. But that talk that Vivekananda gave was given in January of 1900 in Los Angeles. And I think January is a good month for Christ the Messenger. Because Christ the Messenger, of course, is about Christ, but it's also a lot about the message. And the message is kind of a January message. It's a New Year's resolution message. It's austerity, it's self-control, it's renunciation, it's tough love is what it is. And so I thought that, for better or worse, in this country, we don't really look upon Christ that way at Christmas. At Christmas, it seems to me we look more to Jesus for hope. We look more to this period as a period of a savior. We look for someone to save us. And so I thought I would change the title to Christ the Savior and try and explore that aspect of Jesus. But I found, as I went through this, that you can't really separate these things. And so we're going to get some of the message and we're going to get some of the hope, both. So, what is this Christmas hope that we have? We hope for a better life. We hope for a better world. We hope for an easier life. We hope for more love in our lives. We hope for safety for our children. We hope for more fulfillment in our workplace. We hope for all these things. And as the song goes, peace on earth, goodwill towards men. And frankly, I don't think it's very realistic. You know, we hope that the Savior is going to come and give us all these wonderful sort of happy land wishes, right? We have that at Christmas. We have this idea. And so many Christmases have come and gone, and this hasn't really happened. We still have, all the horrors of this world every year in and year out. And yet this desire for a sort of Shangri-La existence at Christmas time seems to come back up. And so there must be something to it. Even though I don't really think that it's going to happen, there has to be some kernel of truth to this, because it persists, right, in our collective consciousness. And that desire for a perfect life. Well, Vedanta would say, and we don't know exactly where it is, and we try and find it somewhere out here. And Jesus actually says something very similar. He says, "Be ye therefore perfect, even as the Father in heaven is perfect." Be as perfect as God. And he says, "Behold, the kingdom of heaven is within you." This perfection is within us. Somewhere in our consciousness, we have this perfection. But we're so directed outwards, we're so outward seeking, that we look for perfection somewhere out there in our lives, in our relationships, in our careers, families, all these places. We look for this perfection. Sri Ramakrishna gives the example of a musk deer. He says the musk deer has a certain fragrance, musk, obviously, that grows in its navel, but it doesn't know that it grows in its navel, and it smells this thing. And it runs around all over the place looking for this smell, and it can't find it. Eventually, it just gets frustrated and old and dies looking for this musk. And he uses this in reference to us, right? He says that likewise, God dwells within this human body, but man does not know it. Therefore, he searches everywhere for bliss, not knowing that it is already in him. And so that's what we do. We run around looking for perfection somewhere out there. And what are we confronted with? The lack of perfection everywhere. Everywhere we go. The family's not perfect, the job's not perfect, the world is not perfect, life is not perfect. And we keep trying to fix things, one thing at a time, right? Fix the spouse, get some kind of peaceful relationship there. Fix the kids, train them, discipline them. Fix the dog, make it do tricks, whatever it is, right? Fix the boss, put him on ice, or get the coworkers, some kind of constructive relationship with them, right? You know, and let's be honest, when we try and fix these things, how well do we do? Maybe sometimes we actually do fix something, maybe. A lot of the time we try and fix something, we wind up breaking that, or maybe something else, that and something else, right? You fix one thing, you break two things. But then sometimes, occasionally, we actually do fix something. We resolve some conflict. We clear up some misunderstanding. And then what happens? There's another one waiting for us, right? It's not like that's the last one. This is a never-ending process. This never stops, even when you get it right, which is rare, let's be honest, right? Even when you get it right, you're going to have to move on, and because there's another one waiting in line behind that one for you, right? And so we bounce around trying to fix everything in this kind of hopeless way. And why is it hopeless? Why is it hopeless to try and fix this external world? Because Vedanta teaches that that's not really where the problem lies. The problem does not lie outside in our external relationships or the apparent world that we live in. That is not where the problem is. According to Vedanta, we are the problem. The problem is internal, not external. Reform yourself, and the world stands reformed. There is a story in World War II. The Americans were getting their planes shot down by the Germans, and they didn't like that, of course. And so what they want to do is they want to armor their planes so that the Germans won't shoot them down. The problem with armoring your planes is that the armor's heavy, and it slows the plane down, which means it's easier to shoot, right? So you've got this trade-off. You have to have just the right amount of armor in just the right place so the Germans can shoot just enough, but you can fly just fast enough to get out of there, right? It's a problem in optimization. And so the military has this idea. They look at the planes that come back to base, and they examine all the bullet holes. And they make a chart. There's so many bullet holes in the fuselage, in the engine, the wings, all these things, and they have bullet holes per square foot here and there and all this, right? And they come up with this idea. We'll look at the places that have the most bullet holes per square foot, and that's where we'll put the armor, right? And they hire a brilliant mathematician to consult them about this. His name is Abraham Wald, and he turned out to be a famous mathematician later, but back then he was a young, smart guy that they hired to bounce this idea off of. And they said, what do you think? He says, it's a terrible idea. You do not want to armor the part of the plane where you see the bullets. You want to armor the part of the plane where you don't see the bullets. Why? Because those are the planes that are not making it back to base. Right? You go to the hospital, you see all these people with leg wounds. Does that mean no one gets shot in the chest? No, it means that people that got shot in the chest died before they got to the hospital, right? Seems obvious in retrospect, but at the time, you needed a genius mathematician to tell you this, right? Anyway, Vedanta says the same thing. We see the bullet holes in the external world of our lives. We see these bullet holes in our lives and we try and cover them up. But that's not where the problem lies, right? Why? Because we don't really know the external world. What we know is our reaction to the external world, right? Swami Vivekananda says it this way. He says, the real universe is the occasion of the reaction of the mind, the occasion of the reaction of the mind. The form we identify as a book, an elephant, or a man is not what's outside. All that we know of what's outside is our mental reaction from the outer suggestion. Okay? This is hard to accept. I'll give us the simplest example I can think of. Somebody says something to us and we feel hurt or insulted, right? Where did the insult come from? You say to the other person, well, maybe they didn't even mean to insult us. Maybe they're just being insensitive. Or maybe we're overly sensitive. But there was no malice intended, right? They just said something. We got offended. So what happened? They said something, the air vibrated, sound waves came, they hit our ears, right? Ears started to oscillate, created electrical signals in the brain. They were interpreted. Where's the pain? Where's the hurt? Is it in the air? No. The ear? No. The brain, the electrical impulse of the brain? No. What happens is there's an interpreter in there that says, that so-and-so offended me. Somewhere in there, that message gets translated into, I'm offended, right? It's our reaction. That is our reaction that we need to work on, right? What we start is trying to fix everyone else, one at a time. Endless, impossible, right? Even if you could fix that situation, there will be another, like I said. Fix yourself. Make yourself ready for all the situations that come, right? Fix the internal problem. Armor the plane where the bullet holes are not, right? And so at Christmas, what we try and do is fix these things in a sort of traditional way. We have parties, and we get presents, and we eat food and talk, and we try and be nice to the people that we either ignore or can't stand for the rest of the year, right? And we're doing that with this idea of hope, that we are going to do our little tiny part to make the world a slightly better place. And to the extent that we actually can manifest love to the people that we don't like, there is some magic there. There is some Christmas magic there. But the basic problem, the root of the problem, we don't really solve with these methods, right? And we have to admit that at some point. We're sort of, at best, putting a kind of temporary painkiller on it, or maybe a Band-Aid, right? You buy your kids so many presents. The whole living room is a mess of unwrapped packages under a tree, and they can't even walk through the living room. And after that's all over, they look and say, is that it? Right? Why? Because they still have desire. We haven't changed the root problem, right? We've thrown presents on it, and that was fun for a while, and then desire is still there, right? That's the root problem. Or at the office party or whatever party, and there's someone there that you have a feud with or resentful towards, or they're resentful towards you, and you have some food and you chat and you try hopefully to remain polite with each other, and maybe even both of you decide that you're going to try and be nice to each other for this Christmas season, right? And maybe that works for a while, but the basic resentment is still there. A few days later, back in January, you're back toe-to-toe with whoever it was, right? Because you haven't taken away the root problem. The root problem is the resentment that both parties feel for each other, right? And at some point we have to realize that these methods aren't really solving the problem, right? This isn't really making the problem of desire or resentment go away. It's sort of glossing over it temporarily. And at this point, there's a couple of different reactions we can have. Some people say, well, that's just life. You do the best you can at Christmas. You got some people you like, some people you don't like, and your kids, well, they're happy for a while, and then they got to realize that, that's just how things are. You don't get everything you want all the time. That's one reaction. Another reaction is, can I really find a solution to this problem of life and living, right? What if I don't want to just put up with this year after year and pretend that this is okay and then eventually grow old and die? What if I would rather actually try and solve this problem? And that's when we look to the Savior, right? We look to a Savior. We say, well, there's this Savior involved with this holiday, and what does he say about this? What's he got to offer, right? So what does he say? He says, "Come unto me, all ye that labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." That is the book of Matthew. "I am come that they might have life, and they might have it more abundantly." That's the book of John. And so that sounds pretty good, right? I think we can all agree that life is hard. It's a lot of work, no matter what you do. We'd all like some rest, real rest. And at the same time, we want no lack. The reason we go to work is because we don't want that lack. We want abundance, right? So these are the heart of the matter. We want rest, we want abundance. That's the life we want, a life of rest and abundance. That's what he promises us. Now, okay, sounds pretty good. How do we get those things? He says, "Not everyone that saith unto me, Lord, Lord, shall enter into the kingdom of heaven, but he that doeth the will of my Father which is in heaven. For whosoever shall do the will of my Father which is in heaven, the same is my brother, my sister, and my mother." Okay, so we want the life more abundant. We want the life of rest. What do we have to do? We have to do the will of the Father. What's that? Well, actually, that doesn't seem quite as bad, right? At least it doesn't seem as impossible as the lust one, where you're not even supposed to think about this, right? It seems like, well, okay, I occasionally fib, but I could imagine myself maybe being better at that. I get in a situation at work or wherever, whatever the situation is, and I can't quite hold to the truth, but I can at least imagine myself holding the truth. And then the yes, yes, no, no thing, that's tough, right? Because I remember when I joined the monastery, one of the senior brothers told me to ask myself this question before I said anything. I think it was at the table. It might have just been said anything, period. I don't remember. But anyway, before you say something, ask yourself this question. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? All right, those are the three criteria he gave for me before I should talk. Right? Now, I'll say, frankly, he did not observe this himself. I've known some monks that actually seem to come pretty close. But if you think about it, what have you got left, right? Run for it, the volcano's erupting. That's about it, right? I mean, there's not a whole lot more that we're going to say. I mean, 90 to 95% of our speech is gone. And forget about being the life of a party and telling some entertaining story. That's out, right? So it's not that simple. It may be somewhat more accessible than the previous, but it's not that easy to do. Another one. Ye have heard that it hath been said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I say unto you that ye resist not evil. But whosoever shall smite thee on thy right cheek, turn to him the other also. And if any man will sue thee at the law and take away thy coat, let him have thy cloak also. And whosoever shall compel thee to go a mile, go with him twain. Give to him that asketh of thee, and from him that would borrow of thee, turn not thou away. So this, to me, seems pretty close. We're back to pretty close to impossible here. Resist not evil. I mean, he says, turn the other cheek, right? We don't, at this point in our lives, I don't think we're getting into a lot of fistfights, but you understand when the insult comes, whatever the injury is, you don't fight back. You don't resist, right? You just, at least figuratively, you just invite another one. Here, another one, free punch, right? You are supposed to be unfailingly generous. Every homeless man, not the ones that you approve of. Oh, I'm not going to give this guy $5 because he'll just go spend it on alcohol. No. He asked of you. It doesn't matter what he's going to do with the money, right? Unfailingly generous. And then he goes on, and it gets more difficult. He says, thou shalt love thy neighbor. Has been said, thou shalt love thy neighbor and hate thy enemy. But I say unto you, love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them that hate you. And pray for them which despitefully use you and persecute you. Now, if you don't think that this is impossible, in case you've somehow missed that, he says at the end of this, be ye therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. Be as perfect as God. Right? So I don't think there's any doubt that we would all agree that this is not human. Human beings don't do this, right? We can't really get there from here. We're human and we have limitations, and this is not accessible. And so, what do we do with this teaching? People have tried to explain it away. People have noted that if everybody actually tried to follow these teachings, or all the Christians tried to follow these teachings, it would result in the collapse of society. I've had a lot of people analyzing what it would be like if everybody actually tried to do this. And it's interesting because it seems like basically no one is really trying to do this. Very few people. And of the people who really are trying to be perfect, how many are actually succeeding? Krishna says in the Gita, who cares to seek for that perfection? One man perhaps in many thousands, right? Almost no one is trying this. Then tell me, how many of those who seek freedom shall know the total truth of my being? Perhaps one only. I've been around many monasteries for many years. I don't know if I've ever met one person who's actually been perfect. I think some got pretty close. I'm not really fit to judge, frankly. There were some that seemed close enough to me. But actually perfect? I don't know. It's a tough one, right? And it's actually not that different than what Jesus says. He says, enter ye in at the strait gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leadeth to destruction, and many there be which go in thereat, because strait is the gate and narrow is the way which leadeth unto life, and few there be that find it, right? So that is acknowledged in his teaching, that this is just extremely rare, right? This is just very, very unlikely that you're going to be able to do this. And it's interesting, in the early church, there was a prominent teacher named Origen of Alexandria. And Origen actually made a big deal out of this teaching. And he actually said, he preached universal salvation. This is about AD 150, 200, something like that. Origen of Alexandria lived. And he preached universal salvation. Everyone is going to make it. Even Satan. All of them, right? Now, he wasn't stupid. He looked around. He realized that just like the rest of us, we don't see many perfect people, right? So how did he explain this is going to happen? Reincarnation. That was his position. We're going to reincarnate in this world and in others, just straight Vedanta, right? All will achieve salvation. Everyone will achieve perfection, regardless of how difficult this seems. Being a good person, fulfilling your Sunday obligation, and the priest and the church will assure you of your salvation. Trust us, we got this, right? And that solution got elevated to the point where the seven sacraments were voted in 1,000 years later to be necessary for salvation. They weren't just sufficient, they were also necessary for salvation. You cannot get into heaven unless you do the seven. That was the Council of Trent, something like 1500 and something, where they voted. Now you vote on the truth, right? You're voting on whether or not Origen's teachings are true. And you're voting on whether or not the seven sacraments are necessary. Well, that doesn't change what they are. Either they are true or they are necessary or they're not, right? But you're voting on these things and you're establishing some opinion, basically, right? And it's funny, but this was kind of satirized by Dostoevsky in the brilliant book, Brothers Karamazov, where the Grand Inquisitor captures Jesus and he's got him in jail. And he basically tells Jesus that the church is giving people the religion that they want. The religion you're giving them, this kind of open-ended religion with perfection as the ultimate goal that'll take forever, they're not interested in that. They don't want that. What they want is what we give them, which is a comfortable religion. We give them comfort. You don't. That's what the Grand Inquisitor says to Jesus, effectively, in Brothers Karamazov. And just to drive the point home, he has the Grand Inquisitor sentence Jesus to death after, the church kills Jesus in the book, right? Anyway, Vedanta says, for better or worse, that all these teachings are literal. You have to do all this stuff. You do have to be perfect. Perfection is the goal. There's no way to really whitewash this. And as impossible and distant as this goal seems to be, Vedanta also insists that we are all going to get there. Everyone. Just like Origen said, universal salvation. Swami Vivekananda puts it this way. In time to come, Christs will be in numbers like bunches of grapes on a vine. Then the play will be over and will pass out. As water in a kettle beginning to boil shows first one bubble, then another, then more and more, until all passes out as steam. Buddha and Christ are the two biggest bubbles that the world has produced. Moses was a tiny bubble. Greater and greater bubbles will come. Sometime, however, all will be bubbles and escape. But creation, ever new, will bring new water into the pot to go through the process all over again. That's the answer, right? Yes, eventually, through this seemingly endless cycle of birth and death in this world and other worlds, we will grow and grow and grow spiritually until ultimately, yes, as unbelievable as that may seem, we will all be perfect. That is the idea. And so that's what I outlined basically as kind of the Catholic Orthodox response to Jesus' teachings. The Protestant response is sort of just believe, right? Just believe that's enough. They weren't too big on the sacraments and all that. So if you just have faith, that was Martin Luther's opinion, right? Faith, good works are not necessary. Faith alone is sufficient, right? And I think Vedanta would respond that that's right, maybe, if you really have that faith, if you really do believe that much, right? But the kind of faith where you just force yourself into an intellectual assent on some historically dubious events and then just let it go at that, that's not worth much according to Vedanta, right? But if you really, really believe, if you believe enough to actually do, that's the key, right? But who believes enough to actually follow these things? Sri Ramakrishna says not 1 in 20 million believes that much. He says, he gives this example. He says, suppose there is a thief in this room, and he gets to know that there's a mass of gold in the next room, and only a very thin partition between the two rooms. What will be the condition of the thief? He will not be able to sleep at all. His brain will be actively thinking of some means of getting at the gold, and he will think of nothing else. And he goes on and says, do you believe that a man could actually believe in God and not go mad to get him? If a man sincerely believes that there is that immense infinite mine of bliss and that it can be reached, would not that man go mad in his struggle to find it? Maybe just mad enough to actually try and do some of those impossible teachings that we went through, right? Okay. So at this point, you're probably wondering, what happened to the Savior, right? I'm getting a bunch of impossible imperatives. Vedanta says I'm stuck with them. The Orthodox and Catholic Church have maybe sort of explained their way around them with some observations and penance and all that. The Protestants have maybe just said, wishful thinking, believe and it's good enough, right? But these are all basically impossible instructions that I can't really do. And I wasn't really looking for that on Christmas. I was looking for hope. What happened to the life more abundant? What happened to rest for the weary, right? Where did that go? Yes, the Savior does play a role in that. That is, according to Sri Ramakrishna, why God incarnates in this world, is to make these ideals, rest, abundance, perfection, accessible to us, right? And how does he do that? He enacts a divine drama, a divine play. He comes here and lives a life, a perfect life, an amazing life that we get to meditate on and think about. And this meditation is a kind of tool for our own purification, for the purification of our hearts and the purification of our minds. That's why the Lord incarnates, so that we may have this story, this saga, to slowly digest and make our own, right? Think about the life of Jesus, right? Imagine being one of his disciples. He has saved you from the world. He has pulled you out of the world. He says, I have chosen you out of the world. And he said that to his disciples. And you know this. You're one of his disciples. You know that he saved you from the terrors of life, the terrors of death, all the little problems that you were going to face, your own karma. He's rescued you from all these things. And you know this and you feel it and you have such gratitude for him, right? And also, he has loved you more than any love you've ever felt in your life, a love that you didn't even know was possible. He says, as the Father hath loved me, so have I loved you. He has loved you with the love of God, right? Nothing and no one in this world can compete with that. Why? Because it is perfectly unselfish. There is no desire behind that love. It is something that we can't really understand. But as a disciple of his, you feel this amazing love that you didn't get from your parents or your friends or your spouse or your pets or any of it, right? This love that you didn't know was possible. And you are completely won over. You have given yourself entirely to this amazing being who has rescued you and loved you more than you thought was possible. And now you see him walking the talk that he said before, right? Resist not evil. He didn't. Now he's up on the cross. He didn't resist them, right? They have killed him most brutally. And we okay? Okay. Sorry about that. He has not resisted evil. He has turned the other cheek. He has done all the things that he told you to do. He's done all those things, and you're seeing the result of that on this cross. This wonderful being that you've loved and given yourself to gave you these impossible teachings that he then proceeded to fulfill. And it wound up with the ultimate self-sacrifice, death on the cross. How dramatic, right? What would this do to you? Would this not just rip your heart out? If you had that relationship with him, you heard those instructions, and you doubted like all of us doubt, well, who can do that, right? And then you see him do it. And then you think, well, yeah, but he was a divine incarnation. He's the Son of God. I can't do it. No, he said, be ye perfect, right? Did not let you off the hook. What a mass of swirling emotions would be going on inside of us if we were sitting at the foot of that cross and looking at that and understanding all that just transpired, right? So this is a kind of meditation, right? This is a kind of meditation that we have on the life of the Savior. Okay, what does this do for us, this meditation? Like I said, it is a tool for purification. As we meditate on this or whatever other aspect of Jesus' life you want to think about, there are many. I just gave one example. As we meditate on this, what happens? We find that these impossible teachings that he gave are becoming slightly more accessible. Somehow or other, when we think about the life of the incarnation, the desire for the flesh just doesn't bother us quite as much as it did before. And as we go on doing this, we find that biological drive isn't quite as demanding as it once was. We aren't quite as interested in hoarding our money as we once were. We still keep a bank account and we still watch it, but we're not crazed over it. Maybe we can't turn the other cheek entirely, but as we go on thinking about this divine life, we find that we don't have the same thirst for vengeance that we once did. What is this? This is rest. That's what it is. It is rest, right? We don't even realize how much trouble it is to pursue our desire. What does that get us into? We do realize it sometimes. We think, my God, what have I done? I'm never going to do that again. And you wind up doing it again because that's desire. It doesn't go away. And it pulls you into one situation after another, and you wind up hating yourself and hating the situation and swearing to yourself you never do it again. You get to rest from that. How much a trouble it is to constantly worry about money, protect it, hoard it, make sure nobody else gets it, right? You begin to get a little respite from these thoughts that we don't even realize how much they plague us. And anger, somebody says something to me, I'm angry all day, I'm angry for a week, I'm so tired of my own anger, right? That is the rest that we get. We get a break from that, right? And you say, okay, well, maybe. What about abundance? That's a problem, right? What about abundance? He said the life more abundance. And now maybe we've got rest, but how did we get there? We got there by denying ourselves, basically, sex, money, and victory in battle. Well, I want all those things. I want sex, I want money, and I want victory over my enemies. Now I'm supposed to deny myself all these things. Maybe I'll get rest, but I'm not getting abundance out of that. What is abundance here, right? And so, it's a good question. Holy Mother, our Holy Mother said that there is no treasure like contentment. I would start with that answer, but I won't end with that answer because it's not very satisfying. Yes, it's true. Logically, we understand that there's no treasure like contentment. A homeless man who doesn't have a penny in his pockets, if he's content, yes, I would say he is happier and better off than a gazillionaire who is getting sued for alimony and palimony and patrimony and has all these relationships and is also trying to, defend himself against his detractors and his lawsuits and wants more money and all that, right? Yes, I would say the homeless man with contentment is wealthier than the wealthy man with all these concerns. Is that really what Jesus meant? Is that what he meant? I don't think so. I don't think that's, ultimately, yes, I do. Ultimately, when you really are content, you don't need any of these things. Whether you have them or not makes no difference. But what about the long road to get there? Do I have to get to this state of contentment through self-denial repeatedly, which doesn't work, by the way? It has been shown self-denial does not work. If you, for example, go 24 hours without a cigarette when you're addicted, it has been proven that you are more likely to binge on something, chocolate, ice cream, or whatever. And then if you go on a diet to lose the weight, it has again been proven that you are more likely to cheat on your spouse, right? These things have been demonstrated by psychologists. They've done tests and they have results, right? Correlations they have between these things. And there are other examples. Why? Because that is repression, right? Repression doesn't work. You just exchange one desire for another desire. And so Vedanta knows this. Vedanta knows that repression doesn't work. So it doesn't recommend repression. It recommends sublimation. You redirect these desires to a higher channel in the mind. That is what we're supposed to do, right? So when you feel the urge to smite your enemy or whatever it is that you feel the urge to do, and you pray, or you remember the life of the Savior, or you meditate, you do whatever you do your spiritual practice, you ask for help. What are we doing? We are not repressing. We are sublimating. That is the act of trying to liven the mind on a higher channel. We are trying to activate the mind on a higher level when we do that. Right? It is a small effort in that capacity. And the Savior comes here and gives us a drama that we may contemplate so that we can activate the mind on these higher levels. That is sublimation, right? Not repression. Nevertheless, I'm not going to stand up here and say that that's easy or painless. We're still having what seems like self-denial. It seems like it. Because when you pray and you ask for help because you're in tears, because you're so angry or you're so afraid or whatever it is, that's tough, right? That's difficult. And it seems like you're denying yourself something, revenge or food or whatever it is, right? But what is the byproduct of this? We get a little more of our mind, that energy that needs to express itself does come out a little bit on these higher channels. And the lower channels aren't as strong, like I said before. And the neuroscientists have told us that this basically is what we call self-control. And this self-control has been shown by the neuroscientists to be a byproduct of meditation. If we meditate regularly, we find, mysteriously according to the neuroscientists, according to Vedanta, it's the sublimation process. However it works doesn't really matter. When we meditate, we find self-control is a byproduct of meditation. Without even really trying to be controlled, regular practice of meditation will give us self-control. Okay, where's the abundance? Still haven't found the abundance, right? Well, what happens when we get self-control? Self-control is everything. Self-control is everything. There is a psychologist, Stanford psychologist named Kelly McGonigal, and she talks about a lot of psychologists talk about this. This is the one I read. She cites a lot of interesting papers. She says, what is the advantage of better self-control? Everything. Self-control has been shown to be more important to academic success than intelligence. It is more important to a successful marriage than empathy. It is more important to leadership than charisma. And they do studies on people that have self-control and compare them to people who don't have self-control. And what do they find? People with self-control lead better and more fulfilling lives by almost any metric. People with more self-control have higher self-esteem. They have more satisfying and longer relationships. They have better health. They have higher career advancement. And yes, they have more money. They even live longer. That's what self-control does for you. What is that? Abundance. That's abundance, right? It's counterintuitive, but self-control brings abundance. That is an abundant life, right? I have come that they may have life and they may have it more abundantly. There it is, right? If you can control these lower desires, you will find every metric that you can think of to measure your life improving. And so this is the message of hope. This is Christ the Savior, right? And as I said in the beginning, I can't really separate Christ the Savior from Christ the Messenger. Yes, the Savior has this message of hope, rest, and abundance. And the Messenger has the method, right? And the method is, think of me. Think of my life, right? The example I gave, whatever example you come up with, meditate, pray, do your devotions, and see the effect in your life. See the abundance, see the rest that you experience for yourself. So, may we all have that this Christmas season. May the good Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May he lift his countenance upon you and give you peace. May good betide all. May happiness come to all. May all see the face of truth and be fortified with the armor of love, goodwill, joy, and understanding. Om, peace, peace, peace.
Jesu, my little son, you must sleep, oh lovely one. Silent is this night for you. Gently cuddle to my breast. Since you are born, the world is blessed. Sweet angels, sing thee to thy rest. Do, do, a star is shining overhead. Love surrounds thy humble bed. Shepherds kneel before thy feet. Beyond the treasures given here, gold and frankincense and myrrh, you are in our hearts most sweet. Oh, here you are in swaddling clothes, the Son of God as heaven knows, come to give his love for all. A miracle beyond compare, that God should send his Son so dear to show us all the way back home. Jesu, my little son, you must sleep, oh lovely one. Silent is this night for you. Gently cuddle to my breast. Since you are born, the world is blessed. Sweet angels, sing thee to thy rest.
So I'm not sure actually what happens today. Do we have a puja after this? Is that? Yes, we do? Okay. So I'll make some announcements and then we stay here? Yes? Okay. Did I get that wrong?
You can greet them at the door.
Okay. So we'll have some announcements, then those of you who have to go, we'll go to the door and meet and greet, and then those of you who would like to stay for the puja will. Is that correct? Okay. So this Wednesday, Krishna Prana will speak on Swami Subodhananda, our own Pravrajika. And then looks like we have midnight meditation. This is a tradition that goes way back for us. The idea is to start the new year right. So you want to meditate from 11:30 p.m. until midnight, just across that transition there. And then next Sunday is Kalpataru Day. That is the day where Sri Ramakrishna revealed himself and granted a bunch of his devotees enlightenment. And it's beautifully told in The Great Master, a book on him, on his life. So I guess that's all we got here. She's the speaker. Okay, I don't see that here. Okay, so she's going to speak on Kalpataru Day.
Then we'll have a Kalpataru reading at Vespers.
Okay, do you hear that? There's going to be a Kalpataru reading at Vespers time, and it's beautiful. That's worth coming to. I presume you're going to read from the Great Master. Yeah, it's a wonderful accounts of the events, and if you're not familiar with it, I'd recommend coming. Okay, so thank you all for coming. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll see you at the door. Okay.